I think the main gift I have is that I don't socialize well. And I'm sure there are a lot of folks in Silicon Valley who are like, I'm smarter than these people. I think I can do a better job. But then they don't actually run for president.
What is your updated take right now on the impending effect of AI?
When I was running for president, I would talk about blue collar examples and I would talk about truck drivers. I should have gone immediately to management consultants, law school grads, coders. I mean, if I've been running around being like, hey, coders, you're effed back in 2018, it would have seemed very far out.
If you lose 15 million jobs in the course of 3 years, that's revolution. That is very bad.
You're seeing, by the way, political violence, you're seeing flare-ups, you're seeing deaths of despair. Anyone who thinks that that's off the table isn't paying any attention.
Welcome to the Minus One podcast, where we interview the most interesting people in the world about the winding paths that they have taken to tackle the journeys that they have chosen to go on. Very excited today to welcome two people, actually. One of my partners, Mark, on his first appearance on the Minus One podcast. And someone that, I've kind of seen from afar and admired from afar, Andrew Yang. He's done a lot of different things in his life. But Mark, you've known Andrew for a long time. Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, so I've been lucky enough to know Andrew now for more than 25 years. Really excited to co-host him today. Is the only person I know who's actually been a successful entrepreneur, presidential candidate, author of 5, now 6 books, provocateur, math guy, dad, husband, regular guy, and lucky to say here, old friend. Really excited to talk to you today about a number of things, but maybe the first is, given the extraordinary career path and the choices you've made, one of the things we talk about a lot at South Park Commons is agency, and how the best entrepreneurs in the world, the people who really bend the arc of history, are people who just do things. They don't ask permission. They just go and get things done. And your career speaks to that in spades, from the Venture for America work to most extraordinarily the run for president. I still remember the day you showed up at Guardant Health to tell me you were running, and I was very confused at first. Running for president of what? And then you actually made an incredible go of it. I'd love to talk about where this agency comes from. Like, what was it in your childhood? What is it that drives you, that has allowed you to continue to do things that are really extraordinary, from starting your own political party to now building and running your own business?
I was the son of immigrants and felt out of place when I was a kid, but then also like a sense of struggle that I wanted to overcome. And so I think there was like a chip on my shoulder for a lot of my life. And my mom said to me when I was a kid, it's like, look, if you don't succeed, it's just because you didn't try hard enough. Like, your ability level is higher than anyone around you. So if you fail, you didn't exert yourself. And I took that to heart. I was like, all right, I guess if someone else can do it, I should be able to do it. And Mark was an early influence on me, where I saw him running a company called Small World, and then thought, like, holy shit, this guy that's not that much older than me is like running his own company. Like, I need to try and figure out how the hell you end up running your own company. That guy figured it out, so let me try and figure it out. Of course, it ended up not being that easy. I did start a company that failed. It's not that hard to start a company. It's just much harder to start one that goes anywhere. And so I had a number of stumbles and falls that my Asian parents were very happy to remind me of throughout my 20s. But some of the experiences I had when I was a kid that really hurt me were like getting turned down by girls. And like, I felt like if you, like, can withstand rejection from Noelle Verbois or whoever the heck the girl is, then getting rejected by a company or an investor or a voter is like small potatoes. I was very sensitive as a kid, and so I think it kind of thickened my skin for later.
That's fascinating. I hope Noelle knows how important she's been in shaping the future of American politics. I am curious, though, because one thing people do sometimes after failures is a flight to safety, right? You could have taken a big job at a safe company, and instead you kept doing things that were entrepreneurial.
Yeah, so I started out as an associate at a big law firm called Davis Polk & Wardwell, that some of you know because it's very fancy. Left after 5 months. So that was my flight from safety. And then start a company that flops. Another company runs out of money. Another company sort of doesn't achieve its goals. And there was a point in there, I will say this to your audience who are going to, then like I probably would have fled to safety if safety had been there. Like, um, so I mean, I became a nightclub promoter. I became a test prep tutor. I did a bunch of side hustles because I thought, well, shit, I need to be able to rely upon myself and assume that my company is going to be shaky. Because in some cases, the company I started ran out of money, so that's on me. But then the next company I joined was, run by other people and ran out of money. So at a certain point, you're like, oh, I guess I should just expect things to run out of money. And those experiences too toughen me up because it's like, you have a couple of companies fail. I used to joke that no one knows you have a net worth of negative $100,000 unless you're stupid enough to tell them. But if you just met me, you might think I was like a smart guy who had, something going for him and not realize I was a total failure. I guess I really did get toughened up through a set of failures throughout my 20s.
Let me ask a question here, which I've often thought about, which is, I think there's a classic study that shows that people's perceptions around how well markets perform in general are a function of essentially how well did the stock market do when they first entered the workforce. Like, was the stock market booming, or was it like kind of going up or going down when they were in their early 20s? And that kind of forms your perception of like, do the markets generally go up or do they generally go down, right? Are you default optimistic or pessimistic? So one of the things I often think about is that I had the good fortune early on in my career to meet someone who I still deeply admire today. This is Mark Zuckerberg. Zuck is like in some ways a personification of you can just do things, right? And I learned from him that like age is not kind of a barrier. Like all it is like a kind of high agency and will. And you can just like, there's no problem that you can't tackle if you put your mind to it. So, and you obviously were lucky enough to meet Mark Jacobstein kind of early in your career to kind of like show you that same path. Does that resonate? Like, do you think that this is a function really of, this is like a lot of like people's pensions for risk is really kind of path dependent on really like the formative years early in their career, right? Which means that, we really like, something like SPC obviously can play a big part because, and a lot of the other kind of, institutions in the same ilk.
I do think those early exposures shape your perception of the way things go. When I was starting out, it was 99, 2000. And so it was like the waning days of the first tech bubble. And then my company died when the bubble burst. I remember NASDAQ went from 5,000 to 2,000. And companies I'd literally attended launch parties for a few months earlier were shutting down all around me. And so seeing that, you realize like, oh, wow, it really all can go away. And bubbles definitely exist and burst. And, I saw people ride the hype train up and then ride it down. And a lot of my friends who are entrepreneurs were struggling for the next couple of years. And my wife jokes sometimes that she thinks I'm always waiting for the shoe to drop somewhat negatively. I don't know if you guys read my book From the Presidential War on Normal People, but it's fairly dark. It's fairly dystopian. It's like, hey, AI is going to come, it's going to eat the jobs, like blah, blah, blah. And I remember when I was doing research for the book, I was like, am I just very pessimistic? And I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm very optimistic by action. But am I pessimistic by outlook? But then I looked at the facts and I was like, no, I'm actually pretty confident that this stuff, is going to head in this direction.
I want to ask more about that because there's an extraordinary dichotomy here between, you wrote a book, the war on normal people. And I think you were one of the first people to talk about AI is going to change workforce dynamics in really profound ways. And I think your quote from just a day or two ago was about 40 million jobs that we're going to lose. And I don't think you're wrong. I think hopefully there's a sort of Javon's paradox and lots of other productivity increases will help absorb a lot of that. But there's going to be a lot of pain. And you were one of the very first people to talk about it in a very blunt and real way. And it led to conversations about UBI and a bunch of other things we can talk about. You're also the same person who wrote Smart People Should Build Things, which is a deeply optimistic book about the fact that the smartest people should be making stuff and maybe not working for Davis Polk and maybe, think about not going to McKinsey, instead like make stuff. And you have the pessimistic piece and the optimistic piece and how they all sort of fit together for you and what you do with that tension.
So again, I consider myself optimistic by action. Like I wake up every day saying, okay, Noble Mobile is going to save Americans billions of dollars and get us off of our phones. Stop the brain rot, touch grass, look up. So it's all very positive. That said, I also listen to data and numbers. And what happened to me was I ran Venture for America, which had very, very positive goals, and realized that for every startup that creates 50 or 100 jobs, there's going to be an innovation that decimates 10 times as many jobs. And so it's like, well, like if I'm going to be clear headed about this, I'm pouring water into a bathtub that has giant holes ripped in the bottom. So like, does it make sense to keep pouring water? Now, if someone comes to me and says, hey, my jam is pouring water, I'm like, fan fucking tastic. Like, do that. Love it. You employ those 50, 100 people, you're going to change their lives and careers. I mean, I've done that. And it's some of the stuff I'm the proudest of. But having traveled the country, even at that point, you see that their first high school graduates outnumber college graduates in this country 2-to-1. And a lot of the innovations I hoped that would employ lots of people just aren't going to employ a lot of what I called normal people, because like the normal person in America is not a college graduate. Even today, I mean, even after this number of years, like I think the proportion of college graduates in this country might be 38%. And so I started to enlarge my perspective, Mark, I think. Like I'm really today very positive about my life, my family's life. I'm positive about your lives, the two of you, because I have a feeling they're pretty good. but then, I took a look around by the numbers and was like, yo, this is going to go really, really poorly for like the 2 million call center workers, the 2.8 million truck drivers, the 3 million clerks, or like whatever the categories were. And so that's when I started to think about running for president, because I thought that was the only thing that could make a difference at the right scale.
I will give you a bunch of credit. You saw that shit a lot earlier than most people. Me and Mark, and we live in a world where a lot of people like to make predictions, but I think you saw that way earlier than most. And it's obviously accelerated even in the last like 2 or 3 years. So that's props on that. That is, a lot of people think, yeah, that's props.
And I actually, it's related to a question that I had. In general, you've seen trends before people. So you were talking about job displacement and what it was going to mean before anybody else, and UBI before anybody else, and then it was actually Sam who came along soon thereafter, and I think probably largely inspired by you. You're also like the first Democrat to talk about the problems of cancel culture and folks being overly woke and problems with two-party systems and the need for things like ranked choice voting. You've always been, I think, out ahead and a provocateur. I mean, now, talking about addiction to mobile phones and the fact that we all need to be spending more time IRL, which I think is absolutely true and incredibly important. So talk to me about like the systems that help you to do this. I mean, you're obviously very sharp. There's lots of smart people who don't see the future so well. So I'm curious about like, is there a thing that helps you to do that? Is there a reason you think that that's been sort of part of your DNA?
I think the main gift I have is that I don't socialize well. And by that, what I mean is like if you stick me with a bunch of people that all went to fancy schools and like, because Mark, I know where you went. Aditya, I don't know, but I assume it was pretty fancy.
Not as fancy as Mark. I went to Carnegie Mellon.
Fancy-ish. Pittsburgh fancy.
Yeah. It's like I am around these people, and I just think to myself, like, that these people are a slice of a slice of a slice very often, and like I don't think it defines reality. That's the main thing. And so then when I try and figure out what defines reality, I just look for numbers and be like, okay, like this is the closest thing I can find to it. And then I try and follow those. I took a test a little while ago trying to identify my political alignment by personality, and I came up completely neutral. Like I'm just pretty much.
You can feel that I think in very good ways.
In that case, Andrew, you strike me as one of the people who maybe I've met who has the highest score on agency, because most people have all these provocative ideas, but they don't act upon it. They just kind of like have theories, but you actually have the remarkable tendency to go and actually do something about it. and you've done this multiple times, that's very rare, even in Silicon Valley, which I think is probably the best crucible for high agency in the world, in my opinion. But you having done so in multiple domains, that's very rare. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I certainly see Silicon Valley as the crucible. And when I spend time there, I get invigorated. I feel like, oh, yeah, like these are people who are doing things. I just think I've picked different domains that a smart person would avoid, like the plague, like politics.
It's a tough lifestyle. I still give, your wife a lot of credit for sort of letting you go do that. I got to say.
Yeah, I mean, I visited Iowa 25 times and Italy 0 times in my life. So like, that is some distinct travel itineraries. But I felt, by the way, you'll appreciate this, Aditya, from that comment. If someone starts a business and you ask them how much time are you going to put into this, they'll be like, I have no idea, but it's probably at least a minimum of 5 years because companies take a while. And so when I decided to run for president, I said I just need to do everything perfectly in my power for realistically was only like 2 years and 3 months. I declared in February 2018, and also not being like diluted. Like I thought it was probably going to end before the end of the nomination process. So I was like, okay, I just need to be awesome and nearly superhuman for 2 years, which if you were to say to an entrepreneur, can you do that? They'd be like, I can do 2 years. I can do 2 years of just about anything, Whereas starting a company, like I am doing now with Noble Mobile, it's like, if you said, hey, I'm going to do this for 2 years, you're a fucking terrible entrepreneur because you're like, what the fuck are you going to get done in 2 years? So in a way, I try to frame it as like running for president was actually easier than some other undertakings.
And more highly leveraged. I mean, this is one of these things, you live in Silicon Valley for long enough, and we like to think we're sort of the center of the universe, and the companies that we build are going to change the most impactful thing you can do in human society. And I don't want to underestimate the importance of technological advancement, but President of the United States has a pretty big budget and a pretty big finger on the lever, as we know, for good or for bad. And so I do think it's interesting. Sometimes you get people from DC out here and they're like, people in Silicon Valley are kind of full of themselves. I think it's a useful perspective and reminder every once in a while.
Well, this is a frustration I'm going to express to you guys. I just want to share this with you too. So I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that I had no intention of running for president as late as 2017, because Venture for America operated in 12 cities and none of them were in Iowa or New Hampshire. I could easily have been like, hey, we're going to roll out in Iowa City and Manchester, New Hampshire. And I never did because I had no intention of, running for that office. One of the things that moved me was watching the Republican presidential primary debates in 2016 and thinking these people are fucking terrible. Like, you watch them, and some of them I'm sure, like maybe some of you know and worked with Carly Fiorina as an example. But like I watched a bunch of these others and I was like, these guys, man, like I'm like, I mean, I even then at that point, I did not think like, oh, I'm going to do this myself. But I thought like, I'm at least as smart as these guys. And I'm pretty sure I have, like better ideas and better intentions. And I'm sure there are a lot of folks in Silicon Valley to that point, Mark, who are like, hey, I'm smarter than these people. Like, I think I can do a better job. But then they don't actually run for president.
Do it.
Unless their name is Tom Steyer or like a couple of people that have gone down this path. And so that step, look, I don't think everyone should run for president, though I do think more people should run for president. I think that would be like better, interesting, more dynamic. There's like that sense that so many folks I know from some of these elite circles look and say like, I could do better, but then their life is too good, and then they stop there.
So it'd be interesting. I haven't thought about this as to whether or not it is that their life is too good, or that even for the folks who are entrepreneurs, like I'm going to change the world and make a business, and it's super hard to do. Think like running for president. That's crazy. I mean, like, who am I to run for president? I do remember the day we met at Guardant Health, and you were like, I'm running for president, and I literally thought to myself, president of what? Because it is such a like. the idea is you do it from the establishment. You weren't already a congressman or a senator, or like it's just a very odd idea, and it shouldn't be. Like, we're a democracy. Like our original framers, like they were
There are only
farmers,
two rules. It's just natural
right?
born citizen and 35 years of age. There's not like,
Right.
and you have to be an office holder and you have to do this. Like, no, none of
Also,
that.
and very importantly, you can only have done it for a total of 8 years.
Yeah.
There's a third rule.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true too.
Whenever anybody who is in the arena is being criticized by, kind of like the peanut gallery, I'm just like, man, if you haven't been in the arena, then you have no right to kind of like comment on like, what can or should be done. If you've never been an entrepreneur, it's so difficult to criticize people who are going through the journey. Like, how do you know kind of like the vicissitudes and the ups and downs of the roller coasters? I mean, this, like, this is probably your third or fourth company. It is super fucking hard to start a company, right? And if you have never started one, you don't actually realize just the magnitude of difficulty of dealing with your own emotions on a day-to-day basis that you just never have to face. If you kind of are, frankly, like, your paycheck is kind of guaranteed on a day-to-day basis. But if an entrepreneur, you kind of have to generate that payroll, like, every 2 weeks. So coming back to your point, I'm like, it's great that Tom Steyer is maybe running for, I don't know, it sounds like he might be running for governor of California.
He's running for governor.
And Tom spoke at SPC a few years ago. And I'm like, listen, I don't know how far you're going to get, but it's a lot of respect for the fact that you're out there doing something, right? Like, you're actually doing something. And I wish more people did it. Frankly, like, I'm looking at myself, I'm like, why I can't run for president because I'm not I'm a naturalized citizen, but why can't I think about being a senator or a congressman or something, right? And the fact that I don't makes me think a little bit about my own pride.
We're not ready to give you. You have a firm to run.
I know. Listen, I'm having fun.
We're not ready to give you up to.
Well, sorry, Mark. What we have done is that 2 people in the San Francisco Board of Supervisors are actually from SPC. So we are helping, kind of like, I would say the political change. But Andrew, you were going to say something.
Oh, yeah. So I gave a TED Talk last year. It was the number 7 TED Talk of 2024. One of the things I want to put out there is that the highest level of value that can be produced, the highest leverage now, is not even running for office oneself. It's trying to fix the system and the incentives. And there are ways that you can contribute to that without running for US Senator or whatnot. So I just want to put that out there because here's the trap. And this is something, like I've heard any number of times, where people think, okay, I should vote, I should give money, and then I should run for office. And that should be like the hierarchy. But then people are turned off because they're like, wait a minute, if I run for office, some people are going to hate me and yell at me. It's going to be a lifestyle downgrade. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do as much good as I want to anyway. And by the way, like, rational, totally rational. I even had in my list of life goals when I was first dating Evelyn, elevate a national political figure. It was not be one. It was like find another schmuck, and then like help them. And so that's totally, again, like smart. It's like rational stuff. And then a lot of excellent people are turned off by politics of today, and reasonable. So there are things you can do, though. Like, the highest level thing you can do right now is to try and cure the system. And the way to cure the system is not to play on one team or another, but to create a new team and fix the incentives. And if that's totally mystifying to anyone listening to this, please just do look up Andrew Yang TED Talk, and then I go through it in like 11 minutes and say, like, this is why things are so fucked, and here's a real life concrete way we could fix it. And there are some awesome people that are working toward that. So there are things you can do that don't involve running for office.
And these are structural things like ranked choice voting and getting rid of gerrymandering and all the things that would having a third party or a fourth party or a fifth party, et cetera.
Yeah. Like nonpartisan primaries is the single biggest step. The problem is that everyone's held captive by the 11% that are voting in the base of each party, and then they just run scared of them. And then they, rubber stamp everything from that corner. And then the rest of us are like, what the hell's going on? So it's any techie in particular who digs into these incentive structures would be like, oh, I would expect really weird, polarizing, bad policy results from this system. And so the only logical thing to do is try and fix the system. It's very much a Silicon Valley approach. The problem is that people are tribal and like get dragged into this or that. I will say, like, I think a lot of people ended up siding with Trump in a way that, my opinion, just saying, probably not shocking to people. was misplaced because I think Trump's, like an accelerant to the disintegration of various institutions, and I think it's not great. But I think it's a result of the fact that they didn't like what was going on in the previous administration, and that you have this like two-sided system where you're like, oh, if I don't like these guys, then I guess I like these guys, and then the pendulum keeps swinging. I think most Silicon Valley people are actually somewhere in this in-between zone naturally, where you want
like maybe abundance Democrats is kind of their
you want good policy, you want results, you want your kids to be able to walk on the street without like stepping over a homeless person or like human feces or anything of that jazz. You're pro data, you'd like to see good results and people make those decisions. You're not super ideological. By the way, this is an appeal I make to Asian Americans too. I'm just like, guys, like, we're like the pragmatic results crew. We're not like the, tribal warfare crew.
Right.
So, Star Trek instead of Mad Max is like the shorthand. But like that crew, in my opinion, should be looking at this political system and be like, okay, like this is what needs to change.
But this makes me think that like your hat should say systems, not math. I mean, math is shorthand for it, but like, and I get it that it's sort of data driven, but actually even more important than the math and the ability to extrapolate, et cetera, I feel like is the thinking from first principles. And I go back to like, how is it that Andrew Yang has done all of these extraordinary things? I feel like there was a lot of good first principle thinking. Like, I'm going to build Venture for America because we need more good jobs in places like Detroit. So here's the thing I can do that will impact that. Or I'm going to reform the American political system because that's actually even more impactful than me being an individual politician. You could probably go run for Congress. You could find a district right now. You have enough name recognition and they love you over at CNN, et cetera. You could find a place to go run for Congress, et cetera. But you can probably do more, have more impact as a systems thinker. And I think that's probably, if I think about like your superpower, that it's that plus the ability to actually hang out with the regular guys, which I think is a very rare thing for people who've actually chosen to run for office.
There are definitely people who wanted me to run for this office or that office, and I wasn't as drawn to it, in part because of what you're describing. Mark, I'm going to be a good entrepreneur and CEO right now and pitch why what I'm doing now is more beneficial.
Do it. Yeah, we haven't had a chance to get to Noble Mobile, but I'm very curious and I love the idea of the tech entrepreneur trying to get people off of their phones. So talk to us about Noble Mobile.
Right. So I've determined that Americans are sad, and I've determined that Americans are sad for two big reasons. There are other reasons, but these are two big ones. Number one, they're not able to save enough money each month. And number two, they're spending too much time on what Hassan Minhaj calls our rectangles of sadness, where I joke, it's like, look, it's not often that your neighbor runs up to you and screams in your face, but you do get that feeling from your phone kind of regularly that like you saw someone scream at someone, maybe they screamed at you even, and you're like, oh, like there's a conflict and like negative emotions. And then so you start thinking that's going on out there in the real world. Meanwhile, in the real world, especially where you guys live, like, the weather is fine and like people are just walking around, like walking their dogs, and your neighbor is like another fine human. And so I thought, okay, how can I make progress on these two problems? And I was inspired by Mark Cuban's Cost Plus Drugs, where he's buying generic drugs in bulk and then selling them back to the American people at a modest markup. Just to run this for you guys. And, like successful Silicon Valley folks will get this, but then you don't care. And you'll see what I mean in just a second. Because you're in the West Coast, I'm guessing you're both AT&T guys, just a guess.
Verizon for me. But yeah.
Yeah, I was Verizon too.
Hoping to switch to Noble Mobile any day now.
For 26 years. Oh yeah, please. After this, you're going to want to even more. So Verizon charged me $140 a month for one line for like a decade or so. So I was overpaying even more than normal. The average American is spending $83 a month on their wireless. You guys are probably spending a bit more than that. You're probably spending a bit like somewhere between
like 105, maybe 105.
I guess $100 or more. Now, the last time you guys brought the families to Europe or whatnot, you got these text messages
$10
saying,
a day.
Hey, $10 a day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you went away for 10 days, you owed them $100. There are two of you, maybe it was $200. And then you got home and you still had your native $100 bill. So maybe you spent $300, even $400 that month. Yep. And you were like, well, that's weird. How did my cell phone bill cost that much? Meanwhile, in Europe, instead of spending an average $83 a month. They're spending an average of $35 a month. And the cost to put you on that foreign carrier cell tower is only about $2 a day, and they're charging you $10 a day for no discernible reason. Verizon paid its shareholders in dividends 11 billion last year. AT&T was 7 billion. The delta of $48 per head per month between the US and Europe comes to 100 billion a year as like a hidden data tax. So when you start digging into, okay, if I'm going to try and get money back into Americans' hands at scale, I think this is actually a very direct way to do it. And so we licensed the data from T-Mobile, and then you pay $50 for unlimited, but we'll pay you back $20 that month based upon any data you use less than 20 gigs that month. So we'll pay you to use your phone less. You doom scroll more, you get paid less at the end of the month. And the average Noble user is using 17% less screen time in month 2, because it turns out we respond to measurements and money, and their cell phone bill is getting cut in half. And if you do the math on, again, saving that $50 a month times 12 is 600, times 30 is 18,000. Put an interest rate on that, compound it, save the average American tens of thousands of dollars, which would be like a down payment on their retirement, and get us all off our screens and looking at each other, touching grass, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you think, Mark? How was my pitch? Noble Mobile.
Hey, first of all, as your old senior mentor as an entrepreneur, I'm going to give you like probably an A minus, or could be even an A on that pitch. That's a damn good pitch. As Jake Migdalia used to say to me, the best lie is the truth. Like that, the most important thing is it's actually all true and really powerful. And I think just as important as the money in people's pockets is anything we can do structurally to get people off of the dopamine machine in your pocket, or the rectangle of sadness, which I have not heard before. I don't think there's anything in our evolutionary history that prepared us for having all the information all the time and all those dopamine hits, many of them negative. It's not just about doom scrolling. It's even happy scrolling is not good for us compared to getting out there and, playing some pickleball.
Wow.
Strong pitch.
I'll take an A minus from my old mentor. I'll take it. It's cool. It's cool.
It's funny because this morning this is related. I just woke up thinking, why is it that a lot of content on the internet has a comment box? We're not allowed to go and comment on everything we see to the whole world, like in real life. It literally doesn't make sense. Like, why when I go to a YouTube video and Instagram, like, why is there a comment box? It doesn't make sense. Like, why should some rando be allowed to comment on
especially
stuff?
when the first rule of the internet is never read the comments.
Correct, exactly. So I'm like, why does this exist? And I was just kind of thinking more because who is getting value from it? Because nobody likes to read those comments. They're all garbage. Like, maybe the people writing the comments feel happy about it. I don't know. So Andrew, as somebody who worked on social products for many years, I was just kind of going back to why did we put this in the first place? Maybe in the beginning it was because friends like to write comments and that was cool, but all of that happens now in your DMs anyways. I can take a piece of content and send it to my friends. That's way better, because at least then we can banter about it in our kind of group chats. But so much of the design of the internet is just weird in bad ways that don't make us happy right now. So I strongly agree with the premise.
Well, fantastic, guys. So would love you guys to join Noble Mobile. It's good fun, growing every day. You see the vision, see the mission. I agree with you, Aditya. There are a lot of things. First of all, I mean, as a political type, I definitely should not read the comments. but I will say that most every celebrity I know and political figure sometimes does. That there's this constant temptation to be like, let me see what they're saying. And then most of the time you regret it. Most of the time you're like, I shouldn't.
Yeah, for sure. So, Andrew, let me ask you a question. So obviously, you talked about AI displacing jobs, and you obviously talked about UBI. We've made a bunch of, not progress, but we now have a better understanding of what AI actually looks like. And we've kind of run some, I guess, small scale-ish experiments with UBI. So maybe give us what is your updated take right now on kind of the impending effect of AI, and also how should we be thinking about UBI as a way to alleviate it in the short or the long run?
When I was running for president, I tended to hit blue collar examples more often. I would talk about stores closing. I would talk about truck drivers. I would talk about call center workers, which is sort of, on the border of blue collar, white collar. It turns out that I should have gone immediately to white collar, recent college grads, management consultants, law school grads, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it turns out that that stuff
Front
is,
end coders.
yeah, coders. I mean, if I've been running around being like, hey, coders, you're effed back in 2018, it would have seemed very far out, because at that time, coders were the most in demand. So my thinking in terms of the sequencing has changed a little bit, but directionally still feel pretty confident that we're heading towards job killing tsunami for the average American. I mean, if you look at the labor force, the number one category of worker is clerical and administrative, which I dare say, like, most people are going to look at that and say, oh, like, we can do a number on a lot of those jobs. By the way, for the curious, number 2 is retail. Number 3 is food service and food prep. Number 4 is trucking and transportation. And number 5 is manufacturing still, believe it or not. So feeling good / bad about my predictions on those levels. The UBI thing was always an oversimplification. Here's what I'm going to present that I was sworn never to do this on the campaign trail, because my campaign manager said, look, it's hard enough to get people on board with the magical Asian man from the future who wants to give everyone money. But when you start talking about a multivariate economy, everyone's head explodes. So never do it again. I think what we have to do is you have to build an arts and creativity economy, health and wellness economy, and caring and nurturing an education economy, and then reward different activities along these dimensions. And maybe you can't buy a Porsche on the wellness bucks, but you can live a fine life if all you're doing is like, doing physical therapy on grandma, and then like leading fitness class, and then being personal trainer. Like you can live lives that you're happy about. But that was always too complicated an idea for the political domain. I do think that's the only chance we have, though, because the argument I make is, look, you got to acknowledge that humans are going to lose to machines if your measurement is capital efficiency. Like, if you take that as a given, then what the heck do people do? And then you think, okay, let's try and do more of the things that people want to do and that we need more of, and that we can agree on in some way. And so you would need a combination of government and philanthropy to help build those systems. It wouldn't be that complicated. I mean, one of the things that I say to folks is, look, each of us uses half a dozen different currencies every day. We don't really think about it. I'm not even talking about Bitcoin and crypto and the rest of it. I'm talking about your reward points on Amex, your frequent flyer miles, your Delhi punch card, your Yelp status, or whatever the hell it is. Like, we have like all these categories. Like, what we do need to do is actually make some of them robust enough to give people structure, purpose, fulfillment, community. So I think giving people money is a thing, and I'm for it. And I, very proud to have mainstreamed universal basic income. But I've always thought that was a foundation, and you still need to build a house.
I hope and assume that Hey Yang, where's my $1,000 touches at least on some of this, in addition to being a funny, good read, which everybody should go buy in February drops. Is that right?
Yep. February 3rd. The alternate title was Hey, Am I Racist, or Are You Andrew Yang? Which I've also been asked. And it's like inside accounts of the last number of years. Say, if Aditya
well, just so you know, by the way, when I told Aditya we were going to get you for a podcast, I think he was hoping that I meant Andrew Ang. But we'll
no, that's a good one. I think probably my biggest fear with AI is that if the job, listen, if you lose 15 million jobs in the course of 3 years, that's revolution. Like, that is very bad. Like, very bad things happen to political stability and kind of the continuity of a country if you lose that many jobs without having a credible plan to giving people, I would say, pathways to both kind of economic pathways, but also pathways towards dignity and status, right? Like, most people get a lot of like value from being able to do something of value for themselves, their family, their community. And if you take that away, I think it's very hard for people to feel a sense of like worth, like, what to do. So I worry about that a lot. So I do think that hopefully, if anything, if it's a fast takeoff, then I worry a lot. I think if it's a slow takeoff, maybe we have more time to think about this stuff. But we're heading for a very weird decade ahead. Yeah.
Totally agree. Very, very concerned. I think you're seeing, by the way, the beginnings of this revolution you speak of. You're seeing political violence. You're seeing flare-ups. You're seeing deaths of despair. You're seeing assassinations and assassination attempts. So, like anyone who thinks that that's off the table isn't paying any attention. I know I'm such an uplifting guy, right? It's like, hey, I thought this was
coming back to it, like the optimistic guy. No, but I really think that through this podcast series, I get the chance, we get the chance to meet a lot of like really interesting people. But it is rare to find somebody who has such a direct line between, hey, I see things in the world, and instead of like commenting on it on X or kind of like complaining about it, I'm actually going to go and do something about it. So this is inspirational. I try to highlight to my children people who would be interesting for them to think about. I will actually bring up your example in one of our family dinners this week and just talk about because a lot of our recurring theme right now for my children, I think that in the age of AI, the biggest thing that we can hopefully impart to our children is a sense of agency, which is, listen, these machines work for you. You have the ability to do more things, dream up more things. So I will talk to them about kind of your career arc and, kind of like what you have done, because I think agency is the currency that will be the most important one in a AI-filled future. So, Mark, I don't know if you have any final thoughts or comments.
Thank you. Thank you. Amazing discussion, amazing career. We're very excited I want to read the book, going to check out Noble Mobile, and really honored to have you on the podcast today.
Well, thanks, guys. I'm actually coming back to the Bay Area in February for a book event at Manny's that if you go to andrewyang.com/events, you can see there. It's free as far as I know. I also do write a weekly newsletter at andrewyang.com that I make free because I have many broke fans. So if anyone has an interest, I put things out there every week. My final word on this was that I hope people realize, I've taken at least as many L's as W's. I was asked to be a commencement speaker at Columbia, and I won a student vote. And I said, thank you, guys. This is the first vote I've ever won. But so much of it is that, if you take big enough swings, you get some hits, you get some misses, you get the privilege of continuing to get at bats. And my attitude is look, I've been gifted with a bat. I'm going to do what I can with it until someone takes me off the field. So hopefully some people here can relate to aspects of that. Hopefully we'll spend some time together in February, and
we would love to do that. Absolutely.
That'd be awesome.
Thank you so much for the time.
So good.
And all right, we'll see you soon. Thank you again, Andrew.
Of course.
Great to
Thanks,
see you.
guys.